Shabbat Shalom, Lekulam. So we are here today for the Parashah Behar, which is the 32nd Parashah, and it's to be read in Vayikra, Leviticus 25. Very short Parashah, one chapter, but very rich in meaning. So for those who have read the Parashah, you know that it is about the Shemitah and about the Yovel. So these are to be seen as literal, but much more deeper as the spiritual. And for that, we're going to look at some points. Many knows that there is a tradition to read the parashot in the Pardes. The Pardes is an acronym. The word Pardes is an acronym for Pshat, Remes, Drash, and Sod. 4 levels of interpretation. And this is very important to understand that the Pshat cannot be removed in order to make a kind of explanation which go away from the literal meaning. Pshat is a literal meaning. We have it here, and in the beginning we have to understand that the Torah is given for people who are called to be working in the agricultural ways. So everything is related to the earth. And here we see something which is really amazing, is that Yehovah gives to the children of Israel, he gives them first the Shemitah. Shemitah is the word which means rest, but rest for the land. So this is something amazing. Today we don't understand that, but for those who are from my generation, you may know that Shemitah existed in the 50s and the 60s, before the introduction of the fertilizer by the agro industry. I remember my fathers and the farmers around us who kept Shemitah for the ground every 7 years. This is a fact. I have seen that with my own eyes. Today, it is forbidden to let a ground or a place to rest. If you don't use it, then it is a fault. Very interesting. But now, let us look at what the Torah says. And I will read some few verses. And Yehovah spake unto Moshe in Mount Sinai, Behar, saying, Lemor, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when you come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Shabbat unto Yehovah. So you see, he said, when you come into the land, it's not during the time of the 40 years in the wilderness, it applies in the land. It is very clear. When you come into the land, 6 years shall you sow thy field, 6 years shall you prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Shabbat of rest unto the land, Shabbat for Yehovah, shall neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. So here we have also to understand, when we study the Torah and the Parashah, we have to understand the numbers are very important to understand. 6 here is the number of man. 7 is the number which point to the completion in this world. Why do I say that? Tradition explains that the number 6 is when man was created. He was created in the 6 days. This is why when you see number 6, you have to relate it to man. You have to understand, there is a message here behind the Pshat, which point to the work of man. And 7 is a completion on this earth. So you see, in the 7 years is a total rest for the land. The land will not work anymore. Why? Because it is Elohim who commanded the earth to produce. If you go back to Bereshit, chapter 1, it is Elohim who gave the land the command to produce. So the land, you can imagine, is a matrix. It's working because Elohim commanded the earth to work, to produce, to produce. Today, in the modern world, people want to force the earth to produce with fertilizer. They say, oh, you don't need anything, you just put the fertilizer. And people become slave from the industry. They have to buy the fertilizer, and they have to put it on. And this is a principle which is very important to understand. So now, he said, and the 7 here is the Shemitah. So I say the pattern. The pattern is why it is so that the 6th year you shall work, and the seven is the Shemitah. So the land, the 7 is also the number of the Shabbat. 6 days shall you work, the 7th day is a day of rest. So the number 7 points to the Shabbat. The Shabbat, which is a physical demonstration of the Torah in your life, in our life. When we keep the Shabbat, we demonstrate to the world that we follow the Torah, that we are Elohim's people. We belong to Yehovah and we follow his way. This is very important to understand. Why it is so? Because it is written in the month of Shemot, you can read, it is written, 6 days shall you work. Right? In Shemot 20, if I go back to Shemot 20, I read very simply what is the commandment which is given to us. He says here, remember the Shabbat day to keep it kadosh. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but in the 7th day is the Shabbat of Yehovah the Elohim. You shall not do any work, you nor your son, your daughter, your maidservant, your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger within thy gates. And the Shabbat become a covenant with Yehovah's people, as it is written, again in Shemot 31, and he say, speak you also unto the children of Israel, saying, very my Shabbat you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generation, that you may know that I am Yehovah that does sanctify you. Work of sanctification comes through the Shabbat, and he say, okay, and you shall keep the Shabbat, and he say, verse 16, wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat, to observe the Shabbat through a generation for perpetual covenant. Perpetual covenant. It is a covenant between Yehovah and his people. And it's very important to understand that because we apply principle. This principle never change in studying the Torah. Now, why do we work 6 days and rest the 7th day? Again, this is a pattern of Bereshit, chapter 1, 6th day, Yehovah's work, 7th day, he rested. So he asked his people to do the same with the land. Now, it's very interesting because he said that in remember, why are you working? He said here, in the 7th year shall be a Shabbat of rest unto the land. 6th year shall you sow thy field, and 6th year shall you prune thy vineyard. Why? If we go in, this is a consequence of Adam's sin. Okay? Bereshit chapter 3, we read, verse 17, we read, because after the Chava took from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and gave to Adam, he ate also. Then they have the consequence. Now Yehovah say to Adam, he say, because you hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying you should not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, in sorrow shall you eat in all the days of thy life. Thorn also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweet of thy face shall you eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it was you taken, for thus you are, and to thus shall you return. You see, this is a consequence. The 6th day works is a consequence of the curse of Adam. This is a consequence, and this earth has nothing else to bring for us until the Mashiach come back to restore everything. But Jehovah, in his mercy, want to show his people that he's always with them. This is why he gave them the 7th day, the Shabbat, which is a day of rest, and he gave them the Shemitah, and we're going to see the Yovel. The Shemitah is very interesting when we read it. He said here, in the 7 years shall you be a Shabbat of rest unto the land, a Shabbat for Jehovah. You shall neither sow thy field, nor prune thy vineyard. That which grows of its own accord of thy harvest shall not reap, neither gather the grape for thy vine undressed. It is a year of rest, Shemitah, into the land, and the Shabbat of the land shall be food for you, for thy servant, for thy maid, for thy hired servant, for thy stranger that sojourn with you. That is the only time we will see that Jehovah gives something also to the stranger, to the ger, to the gerim, who come into the land to live among Israel. Again, this is a shadow of things to come. The day when Israel will be light unto the nations, and the nation will come to receive from the land this food here when they come during the 7 years. The 7 years is the shadows of the Shabbat, the 1,000-year Shabbat, which should come when Mashiach come back, which will be called the time of the Mashiach. So it's very important to understand that at this time Israel will be the light to the world. Israel will be the light to the world. Everything will be restored. And the Mashiach will be king over the earth. And then the stranger will come because they will see this light. And they will say, oh, we want to learn. We want more from that. You see? So we have those shadows of the things to come in the Torah. So we have the pattern. Now we have the Shemitah, 7 years. 7 is still natural ways on the earth. On the earth. We will reach the 7 years, the 7 days of creation, 7,000 years. Then we will enter into the rest for 1,000 years. You see, sometimes it's very difficult to imagine how can we suddenly live 1,000 years. But it's very interesting because if you look back, you go before Noah, people live almost 1,000 years. 913, 969, we see that they were living 1,000 years. We have a change. It's not for today. We have a change in the movement of the earth. After that, the position of the earth, which has been changed. And we brought the change that the people began to reduce their lifespan. Okay? But before Noah, all the people live a long span of life, up to almost 1,000 years. So this will come back, because it is the work of Mashiach. Mashiach is here to restore everything that was broken, including the life on earth. So, excuse me, we will come back. And then he says, another pattern. So before I go to Shemitah, I want to give another point, is that 6 years represent the 6,000 years on earth. And the 7 day, the Shemitah, represent the Shabbat to come, the reign of the Mashiach. Now we have here, he said, you shall number 7 Shabbat of years unto the 7 times 7. And the space of the 7 Shabbat of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shall you cause the trumpet of the Yovel to sound on the 10th of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall you make the trumpet sound through all your land. And you shall, excuse me, you shall hallow the 50th years and proclaim liberty through all the land unto the inhabitant thereof. It shall be a Yovel unto you. You shall return every man unto his possession, and you shall return every man unto his family. It's very interesting. Here we see that the Yovel is connected to the restoration, the full restoration of the of the people. Not only the land, the people proclaim liberty. He said here, you shall blow the shofar in the 10 days of the 7th month. The 10th day of the 7th month is Yom Kippur. In the day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. Shall you make the trumpet sound through all your land, and you shall hallow the 50th year. Proclaim liberty. Why? You see, many criticize our bread from Judah, and they say, oh, you know, the Jew, they do that, they proclaim the year goes from the month of Tishrei, and it's not true because the Torah say the month of Nisan is the first month, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You have vain discussion because people do not understand. He said here that the Yovel will be proclaimed on the 10 days of the 7th month. There is a reason for that. We're going to see. Not in Nisan, not in the... It will go, it is an agricultural cycle. And we have to understand that. When the 7th month, after Yom Kippur, we know that we have from the 15th of the month, for 7 days, we have the Feast of Sukkot. We have the Feast of Sukkot, and with the 8 days, and after that, the land will rest, but the land, they will prepare the ground to plant for the next harvest. This is why they have to stop. Now it's a Yovel. The shofar sound all around Israel, Eretz Israel, and the people will know, we have now the Yovel, the Yovel coming. We will not plant. The same for the Shemitah. It's the same time. So we will stop. We will not plant. They don't plant in Nisan, the first month. They plant at the end of the years. After Sukkot, when the rain come upon the land, they begin to prepare the soil to plant the seed. Because seed need between 90 and 120 days to grow, to come to maturity. You see? So this is how it works. This is how it works. This is why we have the agricultural calendar, which is different from the calendar which Jehovah gave to Moshe. Jehovah gave to Moshe a calendar for the people, but not for the agricultural. Agricultural is different. We have it here. It is fixed here. So don't be shocked if you see two calendars. This is the calendar which works for the agriculture. It's not the work for man, it is for the agriculture. Nisan is a remembrance of the deliverance from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, from the bondage of Egypt. This is a total different topic. We're going to see that another time. But here we speak about agricultural work. You see? Now, we see, interesting is that we have 7 times 7, This is 49, the 50 years. If you take now the 50 years, we know that Yeshua was speaking. It is a long, complex things to explain. But Yeshua in the book of Luke, I will try to find it quickly. In the book of Luke, he speaks about, I think it's chapter 4. Okay, yeah, chapter 4. It's very important to say, he will quote the word of Yeshayahu to explain something. He said, as his custom was, he went into the synagogue, the assembly. Synagogue is a Greek word for assembly. On the Shabbat day, and stood up to read. And there was delivered to him the book of the prophet Yeshayahu, that is Luke 4, verse 17. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Ruach of Jehovah is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captive, recovering of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of Jehovah." What is interesting? What is the connection between these verses, the verse which is spoken by Yeshayahu, and this parashah? This is very interesting. In the parashah, we have been taught that when people in the Yovel here, if they have sold themselves as servants because they have debt, they cannot pay, they have sold themselves, they can be redeemed. Okay? They can be redeemed. Now, he said here, I will read from the verse 47. If a sojourner or stranger wax rich by thee, and thy brother that dwells by him wax poor, and sell himself unto the stranger, sojourner by thee, or to the stock of the stranger family, after that he has sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brethren may redeem him. One of his brethren may redeem him. Either his uncle or his uncle's son may redeem him, or any that is nigh of kin unto him. Very, very interesting, because here we read in English, but if we go in the Hebrew text, what we see in the verse 49, I read, either his uncle or his uncle's son may redeem him. Now, I will read in the Hebrew, we're going to see, he say, okay, also, Echad, also one, Echad, Me'echai, of his brethren, yeah, Hine alenu, we back, or redeem, O, listen carefully, Dodi, O, Ben, Dodi. Dodi, Ben, Dodi. Very interesting, eh? You see, Dodi. And the sage explain that according to Shir, the Song of Song, it is written, as we can read in the Song of Song, we read, very interesting, we read in the chapter 2, verse 16, my beloved is mine, and I am his that feedeth among the lilies. Yeah? Dodi li va ani lo. Okay? Dodi li. You see? Dodi li is a reference to, here the uncle is a reference to Elohim. And the Ben, of course, if it is the son of the uncle, it is a reference to the Mashiach. You see? So I say, oh, you say, okay, that is a tradition, it's tradition. Ah, is it a tradition? Okay, then we're going to look the prophet, what the prophet says, if the sage were finding that in their mind or not. What do we say? The prophet said, look, in the chapter 45, I read, okay. Yeah, the 47, he said, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yet thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet as a man. As for our Redeemer, Yehovah Tsebaot is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Oh, who is a Redeemer? Yehovah. Yehovah is a Redeemer. And he gave the authority later to his son, Yeshua. This is what we have to understand. And many times you will see that Yehovah said, I am your Redeemer. I am your Redeemer. I redeem you. I redeem you from the land of Mitzrayim. I am your Redeemer. You see, and he gave the authority to his son, Yeshua, to redeem first his brethren, Yehuda, and us, coming from the Goim, maybe from Israel, for some of us. You understand? So this is pointing to the time of restoration, because the Shemitah, the Yovel has a promise of restitution. Everything will be restored. What was lost, what was taken from us for different reasons, it will be restored at this time. In the first century, the promise was there. When Mashiach came, to understand that, we have to go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. When we understand that and why it didn't happen, then we know the time now is hanging in the air, so to say, until the Mashiach come back. But the offer of the kingdom was there. Remember, Yohanan Habat Mil, Yohanan the immerser came. What does he say? The first thing he say? He say, repent, repent, the kingdom of Elohim is at hand. It's near you. It's direct near you. When Yeshua came, what does he did? The first thing he did, he went everywhere and say, repent. You see, that is the point here. But the people of the land didn't repent. Even if thousands of Yehudim accepted Yeshua to be their teacher, to be their rabbi, to be a prophet. Don't forget, Yeshua never came as a Mashiach. He was declared to be the Mashiach after the resurrection. He was a son of Elohim, but he was declared to be the Mashiach after the resurrection. So people, when they saw him, there was confrontation. We need to know the historical context of Israel in the first century, which is another topic. And you will see, if we know that, we will understand why Yeshua speak this way, why, where was the problem, why Yeshua was killed in the pshat and in the sword. We can understand that. You see, this parasha is very a promise for us, promise of restoration. This was an encouragement to know that what we endure during these 6,000 years is just to bring us to the time of rest, when we will have no more work to work, but we will enjoy what was promised to Adam before the sin, before he messed up when he took part of the Chava, when she ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So this time must go, and it's almost finished, but it's not yet finished. It's almost finished. And we all hope, this is what we have. We have every day to anticipate the coming back of the Mashiach. We have to anticipate this time to say, oh Father, thank you that you will deliver us from this evil time. You see? So this is a parasha for today, what I want to give you. And we will see next week that we have another message to conclude the book of Vayikra, which is a book about sanctification. Sanctification, the book, we have to read it in this way, sanctification. And it is an encouragement for us to sanctify ourselves by separation, by searching our life, to remove all this clipboard, all those was entangled us into this world, to pray for that, and to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, like Shaul said in Romans 12, verse 2, when he said, I beseech you, brethren, do not be conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation comes only through the Torah in our life. If we don't study the Torah, it's not the Haftarah, Torah. Okay, not Haftarah, Torah. It's a big difference. Okay, the prophet never spoke outside the Torah. So if you want to understand, you need every Shabbat, you need to read the Torah, the Parashah, and to read and to pray and to read and to understand. This is how it works. That's not a man's tradition. It was already in the first century. I will conclude with that in the book of Acts, in chapter 15. We read that there was a problem with some Yehudim who said that the people must be circumcised after the Torah of Moshe. If not, they cannot be saved. So they argue with that, and they went to the elders, they went to Kepha and Yohanan, and they speak to them, explain the case. And what does he say? In verse, he say, look, and he say, verse 15-14, Shimon had declared how Elohim at the first did visit the Goyim, the Gentiles, to take out of them a people for his name. And to this agreed the word of the prophet, as it is written, after this I will return and we build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down, and I will build again the ruin thereof, and I will set it up. He's quoting Amos 9:11. That the residue of man might seek after Jehovah, and all the Goyim upon whom my name is called, says Jehovah, who does all these things. Here again, he's quoting Devarim 28:10, but he doesn't say all goyim. He says all goyim, all Gentile, upon whom my name is called. Excuse me. No, and none unto Elohim are all these words from the beginning of the world. Wherefore, Jacob is speaking. Wherefore, my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the goyim, the Gentiles, are turned to Elohim, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollution of idols, fornication, things strangled, and blood. Quoting Ezekiel 18:6. For more shuffled, as in every city, them that preach him, be read in the assembly every Shabbat. So it's not the work of man. It was already that in the time of Yeshua, and it has never changed. If we want to grow in understanding, in knowledge, in wisdom, we need to study the Torah. And I encourage everyone to study the Torah, to read the Torah with a peaceful heart, to take the time in the Shabbat, to read the Torah, to pray, to give thanks to Elohim for his goodness, and to ask Elohim for help to understand the Torah. If you do that, you will see a real change in your life, and you will not follow the tradition of man. You will not follow those who tell you stories which have nothing to do with the Torah, but you will sanctify yourself, not others. The Torah is for every one of us. It's not for your neighbors, it's for ourselves. It's for us first to apply the Torah. And when we apply the Torah to our life, then we become light unto others. But we cannot take the Torah as an instrument to spank others or to accuse others. That's not the way it is intended. The Torah is for us, for every one of us, So I hope you enjoy this time, and I will say, have a good Shabbat, and also we will enter now the 6th week of counting the Omer, which brings us to Shavuot. Shavuot is also a very beautiful feast, one day, but very beautiful, because it is about Israel. So I thank you for watching, and I hope you will think about what we spoke today and let it in your heart and pray for that. And thank you. Be blessed. Shavuot Tov for after the Shabbat. Yeah.